Hey scholars, today's lesson is lesson 17. The objective is I can develop estimation strategies by applying prior knowledge of length and using mental benchmarks. For today's lesson, you will need your workbook. You also need a pencil and your brain. Let's get started. First, let's do some subtraction fact flashcards. Ooh, let's get that brain working. Here we go. The first question is, remember, if I go too fast, you can pause the video, answer, and then come back to see if you got the right answer. Here we go. First problem, 15 minus 9. Get ready. Yes, 6. Next one, 16 minus 7. Get ready. 9. 16 minus 8. Get ready. 8. 16 minus 9. Get ready. 7. 17 minus 8. Get ready. 9. 17 minus 9. Get ready. 8. 18 minus 9. Get ready. 9. And 19 minus 11. Get ready. 8. Very good. Round of applause if you got them all correct. Kiss your brain. All right, next one. Let's go ahead and go on our application problem. So on your workbook, application problem for lesson 17, and the page is 235. All right, let's read what the problem says. It says, Benjamin measures his forearm, so remember, this is his forearm, and records the length as 15 inches. Then he measures his upper arm and realizes it's the same. So his forearm from here to here is 15 inches, and then he measures from here to the top, and it's also 15 inches. So they're the same. Question A says, how long is one of Benjamin's arm? So step one, you have to figure out, it's a two-step. So step one, you have to figure out how long his entire arm is. So you know that from here to here it's 15, and from here to here it's 15. So how long is the whole thing? Okay. And B, what is the total length of both of Benjamin's arms together? So once you figure out the length of one arm, then you can figure out the length of both arms together. Okay, so go ahead and pause the video. I want to see RDW. We already read the problem. Okay, I want you to draw a picture. You can draw a tape diagram or a number bond. And I want you to write a sentence answering both questions. Again, pause the video and then come back when you're done. Okay, so here is what I did. I wrote, here's 15 inches for his forearm and 15 inches for the top part of his arm, right, the upper arm. So then I figured out that 15 plus 15 equaled 30 inches. So that means the entire arm is 30 inches. Then it says, so here's my answer for A, 15 plus 15 equaled 30. One of Benjamin's arms is 30 inches. Now question B, what is the total length of both of Benjamin's arms together? Well, then if I know one is 30, the other one also has to be 30, right? Because the other side is 15 plus 15 equals 30. So that means that 30 plus 30 equal 60. So that's why I put 30 plus 30 equals 60, and my word sentence says the total length of both Benjamin's arms is 60 inches. Did you get it correct? All right, now let's go to our concept development. Okay, the first thing I want us to do is make a list of some things that we measured on our last lesson, lesson 16, that were about the size of a foot. Okay, so here I have inch, about the size of an inch, about the size of a foot, and about the size of a yard. So what were some of the items that we measured that were about those sizes? Who can tell me? What did you measure? I know I measured my workbook, and it was about the size of, let's annotate that here. I know I measured my workbook, and it was about the size of a foot. I also measured a paper clip, and that was about the size of an inch. I know that I measured the width of my door, not the length, not how long it is, but the width of my door, and that was actually about a yard. So width my door, just the width though of the door, okay? So I'm gonna write the width of. What else did you measure? I know, what was a pencil? No, right, a pencil wasn't about the width. What else did we measure that was about the size of a foot? Remember, this is a foot. I actually measured my whiteboard. Look at that. It was about the size of a foot. Yes, I measured my whiteboard. Whiteboard. And it was about the size of a foot as well. What else did I measure? Also measured a quarter, and it was about the size of an inch. So what did you measure that was about those sizes? So if you want, you can pause the video and make it the chart. You don't have to, but if you want to, you can. Okay, so now that we have that, we can go to the next part. Okay, I erased this because I know that a lot of you don't have the actual measuring tools that you need. Some of you may not have rulers, but I was thinking about what mental benchmarks can we use to measure things that you have around the house. So I figured out, if you see the question here that says, what on our list could remind us about the length of a foot? Well, the length of a foot is actually, I figured we could use a sheet of paper, right? A paper. Why? Because everybody has a spiral, right? Or a paper from your workbook that we can use. So if you don't have a ruler to measure a foot, because remember 12 inches equal a foot, then you can use as a mental benchmark, you can use a piece of paper or your workbook, okay? So that's what we're gonna use as a mental benchmark. So you're gonna imagine and pretend that your workbook is a foot or a piece of paper is a foot, okay? Now, let's think about what reminds us of the same as a yard. So I figured, like we said earlier, well, I don't have a yard. I don't have a yard at home. I have a meter stick, but I really don't have a yard. So what we can use to figure out, use it mental benchmark is the width of the door. So you know how when you open the door from the handle, well, from one side to the other, not the length, but from one side to the other is about a yard. So right here, we're going to put the door there. And then again, remember I told you what reminded me of an inch? That was actually a quarter. That helped me. So again, I was trying to think of what items and objects you have at home that you can use to do these mental benchmarks. So if you don't have inches, well then you can find a quarter somewhere around there and use that to measure. If you don't have a ruler to measure your feet, you can go ahead you can go ahead and get a piece of paper, and that's what we're going to use, okay? And the same thing for the width of the door. All right, now that we have that, let's go ahead and continue with the lesson. So now look at the board, look at the picture here. It says, let's use mental benchmarks to estimate measurements. So here I put a picture of a dry erase marker. How long do you think an actual dry erase marker is? Now, first we're gonna estimate or guess. Remember, guesstimate. How long do you think this Expo marker would be? A dry erase marker. Okay, so remember, I don't have a ruler, I don't have this. Okay, well, what would you use to measure that Expo marker? Would you use a piece of paper in feet? Would you use the width of your door in yards? Or would you use a quarter to measure and use a mark and move forward strategy? Yes, right, we would use a quarter. So if you have an Expo marker, go ahead and measure it, okay? And let's see what the width is. I have one here, I don't know what happened to it. Weird. Okay, but because I have, I'm going to measure and, oh, first let's guesstimate. I think it's about 5 quarters, right? 5 inches. Let's see. It's about 5.5. So because it's 5.5, we're gonna have to go to 6. Remember, if it's half or more, we go to the next one. So 6 inches. Okay, so now what I want you to do is, remember, we're gonna do 2 steps. Okay, listen carefully. We're gonna do 2 steps. You're gonna find objects around your house that you wanna measure, and we're gonna use those mental benchmarks. The quarter, a piece of paper, the quarter for your inch, a piece of paper for your foot, and the width of the door for the yard. Okay, those are gonna be your mental benchmarks. Now, here are the steps. It says measurement, estimation strategies. So here are your strategies. Step number 1, you're gonna choose a mental benchmark and estimate. Is it a little more, a little less, a lot more, or a lot less? Then you have to visualize. Visualize means think of it in your brain. Imagine it in your brain. How many times a benchmark makes the same length as the thing you're measuring? So for example, if I'm going to be using a whiteboard to measure my desk, okay, let's say, because remember we said that the whiteboard was about the size of a foot. But let me use a piece of paper actually. Okay, so I know that this piece of paper is a foot because this is my mental benchmark. So now I have to imagine, visualize, if I use the mark and move forward, about how many feet would my desk be? I think about 7 feet. Okay, so is it a little more, a little less, a lot more, or a lot less? Now, step 2 is measure and see how close I was. So I think it's gonna be a little less than, what did I say? 6 feet? Okay, so I think it's a little less than 6 feet. That's my mental benchmark. So now I'm gonna see, remember this is a foot. This is our mental benchmark. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, actually it was a little more than 6 feet. Okay. So again, remember the steps. So let's try this again. You're going to use these mental benchmarks to estimate measurements. You're going to measure remember the width of the quarter is a benchmark for what? For an inch. The length of a paper is a benchmark for what? A foot. The width of the door is a benchmark for a yard. So now we're going to use these mental benchmarks to estimate measurements. Remember your steps. Step 1, use a mental benchmark to think how long something is. So first you have to guess. Okay, like we did with our dry erase marker, we guessed it was about 5 inches, right? And then step 2, you measure and see if you were correct. Okay, now if you want to do this with different objects from your house, you can, and have fun with it. Remember, you need a quarter, a paper, and just the width of the door. If you don't want to do that and you want to go straight to the problem set, that's okay too. On your problem set, for the first one, it says the width of the door. Well, what would you use to measure the width of the door? What mental benchmark? Would you use the quarter? Would you use the paper? Or would you use the width of the door? Yes, right, you would use the width of the door. So right here, you write width of the door, okay? And then your estimation about how much you think it is. So you guess, remember we guesstimate, we estimate, and then is it a little more, a little less, right? So I'm thinking, well, I already know that the width of the door is used to measure what? What unit? A yard, right? So my guess, my estimation is that it's about a yard long. And then you go and measure the actual length and figure out what it is. Now for B, I know it says the width of the whiteboard or a chalkboard. We don't have that. So instead, if you want to do the width of your refrigerator or anything else that you want to do, that's okay. You can do that. And then for the next one on your problem set, it says the height of a desk. So again, if you don't have a desk, you can use a table or something to scratch it out and do it. The length, remember height is how high, how tall you are, and length is how long, length. And then the length of a reading book. And then you have more options. So once you're done with your problem set, you can come back and do your exit ticket. Not come back to me, but you can go back to your book and do your exit ticket. I really hope you have these objects at home, and I really hope that you enjoy measuring. I really wish that I was with you and see you and take pictures and stuff of you measuring around the classroom. Unfortunately, we can't do that, but I hope you and your family are having fun and that you are able to use these tools to measure. Okay, so see you on the next lesson, lesson 18. Bye.